Well, hi, good day, everybody. I just want to give a video update on some personal natural health undertakings, pursuits, ideas, tests, whatever you want to call them, experiments. I've talked about this a lot, but of course, you always have to remember that not everybody sees, hardly anybody sees your post. Hardly anybody sees your post. So if you have to post about the same thing 10 or 15 times before a majority of people see it at all, if that makes any sense. So anyway, this one's going to be about teeth, and I think it's pretty interesting, actually, because I have personally lived it and experienced it. To be honest with you, I think it's very interesting, extremely interesting. So I heard one time that there is no scientific or medical basis for going to the dentist twice a year. It's just that when the toothpaste companies were looking to get ADA, American Dental Association endorsement, I think, that was Crest back in the day when I was a child. You used to hear that all the time. I don't know one way or another if they still advertise that fact. But when I was a young man, it was endorsed by the American Dental Association. You used to hear that constantly. So one of the things they did to encourage the American Dental Association to endorse their product was that they made up this sort of arbitrary rule, and I think this was actually before my time. I think they started this back in the 50s, actually. But you could see that when I was a child, it was the 70s, because I was born in 65. So you can see that the timeline that these that big corporations go by. They go by timelines of decades, basically. They make decisions that affect the company, affect their business for decades. So 20 years after the 50s, I was a child in the 70s, and 20 years after they started doing this, they were still doing it. Like I said, I don't know if they do it anymore, but it was basically constant or ubiquitous. When I was a young man, and I was a kid. You don't really even notice these things, but just the fact that I can remember it is a testimony to the fact that it was just like constantly repeated over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? So back in the 50s, the story goes that this is one of the ways the toothpaste companies got the ADA to endorse their product, was because they agreed to, or they greased the palms, so to speak, greased the wheels of public relations between their executives and the leaders of the American Dental Association, so forth and so on, by promoting this idea that you need to go to the dentist twice a year. And obviously, the ADA is acting in the interest of its members, and it helps its members if they can either advocate for something like this themselves, or they can somehow persuade, directly or indirectly, somebody else to do it, so that the effect for their members is the same regardless. So that's the story. I don't know if it's true, but that's the story. Okay. So now everybody goes to the dentist, or that's the standard, right? Go to the dentist twice a year. A lot of people go once a year. I would, true to form, I would go whenever I needed to, which is the wrong way to do it. I mean, that's, you go when you have no choice. I remember I went one time, and my tooth was hurting so bad that I was taking, no exaggeration, like 20 ibuprofen a day or something. I remember being at work and my tooth hurting so bad, and I would have to keep taking ibuprofen to keep the pain down. And when the dentist finally pulled the tooth out, there was a hole right at the gum line, perfect hole all the way through the tooth from front to the back. I mean, you could have literally made a necklace out of the tooth. And since the guy pulled it out whole, it had the root and everything. So it was in a way, it was kind of cool. He did a really great job. It was very precise and very expert, and he was very patient and took his time, and it didn't hurt too bad. I mean, it hurt, but didn't hurt that bad. I just thought it was pretty cool. The whole thing was pretty cool. So that's the way I did it. But growing up as a kid, I had cavities like crazy. I mean, constantly, you know. Maybe not excessively when compared to other kids, but a lot of, you know, every time I went to the dentist, I had a cavity, you know, if not three, between 1 and 3 cavities. And it was always miserable going back and getting them filled and, you know, drilled, and the smoke and the smell and the weird feeling and everything was horrible, you know. But so that's my life story. Not good teeth. That's my life story, you know. But then I don't exactly know what happened, where I got the inspiration, but I know that my grandmother started it when she would talk about hydrogen peroxide in her sweet little southern voice. You know, I brush my teeth with hydrogen peroxide. And she would say, every time I go to the dentist, they just can't believe that I got no plaque. You know, she had no plaque. In case you can't understand what I'm saying, she would brush her teeth with hydrogen peroxide, and she would go to the dentist and she had no plaque. So I can remember as a kid, I'd go to the dentist and they'd be scraping, and the scraping was like one of the worst parts, that sharp thing that have to go beneath the level of the gum, and it was, oh, I hated that scraping thing. I mean, the whole thing was bad. Everything about the dentist was just bad. The weird toothpaste and the thing that stretches your lips out, because I have a small mouth, and everything was just bad, you know. And so I followed my grandmother's advice late in life. Obviously, when you're a young man, you don't do anything your elders say. So I just ignored her for the first 30 years of my life or whatever. But at some point in time, I decided to give it a shot. And lo and behold, I went to the dentist and I had no plaque. I couldn't believe it. No scraping. The girl was like poking around in my mouth, looking for some plaque, and she couldn't find any. And I could tell she was like confused and maybe even a little bit frustrated, but mainly confused. She was like, you have no plaque. I'm like, yeah, I know. My grandmother taught me that, you know. So it was pretty funny, you know. So that was pretty cool. You know, that was actually pretty cool, you know. But then somewhere else along, I learned pretty quick, you know, you can't do this. You can't brush your teeth with hydrogen peroxide every day. Your teeth start to hurt after a while. Hydrogen peroxide is pretty severe, you know. I also learned at one point that it's a naturally occurring substance. I don't know. I'm not that conversant about the scientific properties of hydrogen peroxide, but I know it has something to do with rainfall and tree roots, or it comes up from the tree roots, or the tree roots produce it when it rains, or something. I don't know. There's something about it. It's naturally occurring and has something to do with rain. I think ozone and trees or tree roots. You know, that's kind of a disjointed summary of hydrogen peroxide, but that's just like a brain dump of everything I know about it on the scientific side of things, as opposed to the experiential side. On the experiential side, like I said, I was using it about once a week, and I had no plaque on my teeth. I go to the dentist. So at one point in time, I got the bright idea to add baking soda to my hydrogen peroxide routine. So this is what I finally ended up doing. About once a month, that's the goal. Sometimes it's once every 6 months, but that's just me. I don't have any discipline, very much discipline. But the goal is once a month. I brush my teeth for 5 minutes. I have a timer with regular toothpaste, and then I floss, and then I brush my teeth for 5 minutes with baking soda and hydrogen peroxide. Just baking soda, hydrogen peroxide, no toothpaste. And then for 5 minutes, and then I rinse my mouth with hydrogen peroxide for 30 seconds, and then I brush my teeth with toothpaste for 5 minutes again, so 15 minutes total once a month. And like I said, sometimes I end up doing it once every 6 months, whatever. And then some mouthwash or whatever. And I call it acid washing my teeth, right? Now here's the thing: if you've never done this, the first time you do it, you're going to be in so much pain. You just can't believe it. I mean, you can't believe how much pain you're in. I mean, your gums they're going to feel like they're on fire. They might bleed. I mean, it's going to be bad. I mean, and I remember one time I did it, and it hurt so bad. Don't ask me why, but I felt like I could feel every vertebra in my spine. I can't say that that's actually literally true, but that's just the sense that I had. I mean, it hurt, right? And but it happened to me today again. This what I'm about to describe, and that was why I decided to make this video, because what I found though is that it does hurt, especially if you've never done it before. But then when you let your mouth heal up, and then you go back and you do it again, it still hurts, but not quite as much. And then point being is, you do it 4, 5, or 6 times. After a while, not only does it not hurt, but it's actually refreshing. And then when you get to that point, then after about 2 weeks after you do it, you start to get the sense that, man, my teeth feel dirty. I need to do this acid wash thing again, you know? So that's the story, okay? Like it feels really good after you get used to it. And you're not used to it, it does not feel good. But here's the thing: I haven't been to the dentist in like 12 years. And my teeth, people compliment me on my teeth. My teeth feel good. Everything. So it just works great. Okay. Now here's my theory. My theory is that nothing is what they say it is. Sugar does not cause cavities. I went to brush my teeth with some fluoride toothpaste, and my fiance said to me, "Watch out, your teeth are gonna hurt." And I was like, you know, I understand where you're coming from. I'm with you on the fluoride. Everybody's catching on or buying into this idea that fluoride is poisonous and it's bad. Everybody's buying into that, and I'm with her on that. But I'm like, nevertheless, I'm always jumping back and forth, because I don't just like jump from one side of the track to the other. I do, but then I jump back because I want to test to make sure my perception is right. Because if you just make one jump and then you decide, you make a decision based upon that one jump, you know, your perception is, our perceptions are very easily, influenced, you know? So I kind of feel like I have to go back and forth a few times before I'm convinced that I understand what the implications of both sides of the issue are. But she said that to me, and I was like, no, I don't think it's quite that extreme, you know. I don't think it's that explicit, you know, like I'm going to notice in a week. But sure enough, after a week, my teeth started hurting, man, and I took that fluoride toothpaste, I threw it in the garbage, and I started using the natural fluoride-free toothpaste again, and my teeth were fine, like after about, I guess, I don't remember, to be honest with you, maybe a few days, maybe a week, I can't remember, but something like that. So here's my theory. My theory is that it doesn't have anything to do with sugar. It doesn't have anything to do with fluoride. It has to do with cleanliness. And my theory was for the longest time that we get micro cracks in our enamel just naturally, and maybe from food, you know, whether it's sugar or other type of acidic type foods, or foods that create an acidic type environment. Whether they themselves are acidic is not really the issue. And then those micro cracks get food stuck in them, and that's the beginning. That's it. Well, I mean, technically the micro crack is the beginning, but it's when the food gets in there, that's what causes the cavity-friendly environment. Now, the viscosity of hydrogen peroxide is extremely low, if I've got that correct. It's like a pH. I can never remember if high pH is acidic or low pH is acidic. It's like the reverse of what you think it would be. I can never remember. It's the same way with viscosity. Is high viscosity like molasses, or is low viscosity like molasses? I think high viscosity is like molasses. So I'm saying hydrogen peroxide has low viscosity, like it's more fine than water, or so it would seem. So in other words, something that has very low viscosity, if I'm using the qualifier low correctly, to me, just intuitively suggests that it can get into little tiny places, like little tiny cracks, right? And hydrogen peroxide, if you look at the bottle, not all bottles, but a lot of them say oral debreeder on them. So hydrogen peroxide is technically and medically a substance that debreeds. In other words, it eats away at the dead. It eats it and it removes it, right? It dislodges it and carries it away. That's what hydrogen, it's an oral debreeder. So I know people that have been scared to rinse their mouth with the hydrogen peroxide. I'm like, dude, it says oral debreeder right on the bottle. It's made for rinsing your mouth. Don't be afraid. It's what it is. You know, I mean, it's made for other things also. I mean, a lot of things. Hydrogen peroxide is like vinegar. It's like you can use it for everything, right? There's a doctor that took whole pallets of it to Africa and cured like 85% of every disease and disorder he came across over in Africa. Anyway, so I used to think that it was this, that the debreeding effect of hydrogen peroxide, and then that the baking soda was just kind of like an added benefit that sort of polished the teeth. That's what I used to think. I still think that, but I think it's a little deeper than that, because I've tried hydrogen peroxide by itself. It doesn't have the same effect. I've tried baking soda by itself. It doesn't. Both of them together, really, to me, excuse me, by the way, have a perfect symbiotic effect. If it's even symbiotic or synergistic, I don't know. But you know, a perfect effect. The two of them together. You know. And here's what I think now. I still buy into the low viscosity debreeding effect of hydrogen peroxide. I'm still onto that. But I also think that the baking soda remineralizes the teeth, because my teeth are extremely healthy. Occasionally I'll start to get an ache or a pain, and I'll do this acid wash thing, and they'll start to feel better. Now, I gotta say, if you have some kind of an issue developing in your mouth, that hydrogen peroxide will find it instantly. I mean, it will hurt, right? But me, for doing it for years now, if I have an issue, it doesn't hurt that much, which tells me the issue is never that deep for me. Like, in other words, prior, in my prior life, I would get a toothache and I would just ignore it as long as I could, you know? So obviously, the issue just got deeper and deeper and deeper. Now I get a toothache, and since I can just walk into the other room and take care of it, I might not do it that day or even that week, but, you know, I do it in relative terms. I do it soon, you know? So my issues never really have the opportunity to get that deep. This is me talking. This is my theory. So that's why it doesn't really ever hurt that much anymore. And I did it today, and it barely hurt at all. I did it 2 weeks ago. It hurt a lot because it had been like 3 months or maybe more, you know. And by a lot, I don't mean like a lot like in previous days. A lot. I mean, back in the old days when I had just started doing it, it hurt on a whole different level. I mean, it was like, wow, this is painful. But I mean, 2 or 3 weeks ago when I did it, it hurt, but not like that. Not like those old days kind of hurt. It just hurt. Your mouth feels kind of raw for 2 or 3 days. You know, I just think I mean, I've had cavities my whole life. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 teeth gone, you know, from situations. You know, now, I mean, like I said, 10, 12 years, I've not been to the dentist. I feel no compulsion, no need, no impulse, no desire. I mean, except eventually I'll want to get these teeth replaced. But I mean, it's like not an issue. And I can't believe it. I mean, yeah, that's true. I can't believe it. That's true. It's like, even though I'm living it and experiencing it, it's pretty unbelievable. Excuse me. So this is not really a video to tell you how to take care of your teeth. My passion is for people to have independence from the system, you know, because it's like the Matrix, you know, they got those giant fetuses with the cords stuck in their back. I mean, that's like us. That's like us when we're dependent upon a system, when we're helpless, when we go to the doctor, when we're helpless when we need to be fed, when we're helpless and we need to be clothed, or when we're helpless when we need to be when we need housing, except that the system is there to hand it to us like we're invalids, you know? that those scenes in the Matrix are exactly the same thing, but they're just an extrapolation of where we are, but they're the same, if that makes any sense. So what I'm trying to say is, my passion is to prevent the slide in the direction of that ultimate state that the Matrix, so dramatically portrayed, and slide it back. Because, the world really is not a place of black and white and poles. It's more a place of scales and spectrums. So the idea is not to not be on this pole or to be on this pole. The idea is more to be at this place in the spectrum or in this place in that. Because obviously dentists are good. Obviously doctors are good. Obviously housing and farmers and networks of food delivery are good. But when when you slide on the spectrum of dependence versus independence so far, this is where it starts to become an issue. I can't really say that complete independence is an issue. I don't know. I mean, except the fact that you're doing everything yourself. I mean, that's not very good, right? I mean, you want to be in a good place on the spectrum where you can kind of go either way with relative ease, So that's what I feel like. I still want to go to the dentist. I still want to go to the doctor, but I want to go when I need to go. I don't want to go if I don't need to go, and I don't want to be incompetent to make a accurate assessment of when it's a need versus when I can do it myself and I'm not aware of the fact that I can do it myself, and I can do it myself easily. It's just a question of not knowing and not making an effort, and just sort of passively falling back into the hands of a system that is not necessarily always acting in my best interest. No system is. It's a system. It's inanimate. It's neither moral or immoral. It's just a system. So if you rely on it, without exercising zero self-judgment, zero self-will, zero self-determination, you're basically asking to be raped, So that's what I mean by the scale. The scale becomes really bad over here. It becomes really bad over here. There's a healthy place in the middle that all of us will choose to be. Some people would choose to be more dependent, some more independent, and that's fine, But that diversity of where we are is fine. But this Overton window, I think needs to be relatively narrow as opposed to being this, where we have people totally dependent, people totally. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you like it. God bless you. Bye.